All right, people. I'm back again. I told you it's going to be a long one today. Hope you got time. But if you ain't got time, break it down. Come back to it. Listen to it. I'm not trying to get likes or something like that. I'm just trying to educate you. You know what I'm saying? I can care less about likes. I like doing this. So it don't matter. So what just happened? God delivered the three kings of Israel out of the hands of the Moabites and smote the Moabites. You understand? When they called upon him. If my children that are called by my name will humble themselves and call upon me, I will deliver them. You understand? He says it, and he does it every time. But what happens when you call on other things? It ain't good. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons, chapter 4 of 2 Kings. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elijah, saying, Thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord. And the creditor is come to take unto me my two sons to be bondmen. And Elijah said to her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me what's thou in the house. Excuse me. And he said, Thine handmaid have not anything in the house save a pot of oil. It's weird how Elijah and Elijah do similar things. And he said, Go borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels, borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into thee all those vessels. And thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and upon her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet a vessel. And he said unto her, There's not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go sell the oil and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of the rest. Wow, ain't that a blessing? That the oil just kept overflowing. Why? She sought the Lord through Elijah. And she believed. And she did. Do you understand? Obedience has a lot to do with what you receive from God. Faith without works is dead. Most people think you just got to sit there and wait. No, she had to do some work. She had to go borrow. And then she got blessed. You understand? She owed some creditors. And God took care of her. God take care of you too. God clear your debts. If you require of him. How he do it is different for everybody. Do you understand? It's different for everybody. It don't happen the same way with every soul. And it fell on that day that Elijah passed to Shunem, which was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was that as oft as he passed by, he turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold now, I perceive that this is an holy man of God, which passeth by us continually. I'm going to tell you something. When you start living for God, they know it. People know it. He was bald-headed with a long beard. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in hither. And it fell on that day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, Call this Shunammite. And when he had called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, Say now unto her, Behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldest thou be spoken for us, the king, or to the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Verily she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, About this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. He said, Nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie to thine handmaid. And a woman conceived and bare a son that season that Elijah had said unto her, according to the time of life. Now, think about this. If she wouldn't have never stopped and helped that man, Elijah, she would never receive this blessing of a child. It ain't over yet. And when the child was grown, it fell on that day that it went out to his father to the reapers. And he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to the lad, Carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he said on her knees till noon. Then he died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. And she called to her husband and said, Send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? Is it neither new noon nor Sabbath? And she said it shall be well. Remember, Elijah did a similar thing when the other child almost died. And he restored his life to it. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, Drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding for me, except I bid thee. So she went and came unto the man of God to Mount Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, Behold, yonder is the Shunammite. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and say unto her, It is well with thee. It is well with thy husband. Is it well with thy child? And she answered, It is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And the Lord hath hid it from me, and have not told me. And Elisha said, Did I desire a son of my Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer him not again. And I lay my staff upon the face of the child. And the mother of the child said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I would not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. So he told her all she had to do is this. But she was like, No, I want you to do it. But she would have been healed by the way that Elijah said. And Gehazi passed on before them and laid the staff upon the face of a child, but there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him and told him, saying, The child is not awake. And when Elijah was come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore and shut the door upon the twain and prayed unto the Lord. And he went up and lay upon the child and put his mouth upon his mouth and his eyes upon his eyes and his hand upon his hands, and stretched himself upon the child, and the flesh of the child was waxed warm. Then he returned and walked in the house to and fro, and went up and stretched himself upon him, and the child sneezed 7 times. And the child opened his eyes. And he called Gehazi and said, Call this Shunammite. And so he called her, and when she was coming to him, he said, Take up thy son. Then she went in and fell at his feet and bowed herself to the ground and took up her son and went out. And Elijah came again to Gilgal, and there was a drought in the land. He healed her. He healed the son. You believe in God? Believe who he sends. And the son of the prophets were sitting before him, and he said unto his servant, Set on the great pot a sea pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild gourds, his lap full, and came and shred them into the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. So they poured out for the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot. And they could not eat thereof. But he said, Then bring meal. And he cast it into the pot, and he said, Pour out for the people, that they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot. And there came a man look at that. And there came a man from Shalisha, and brought the man of God bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and full of ears of corn, and the husk thereof. And he said, Give unto thy people, that they may eat. And his servitor said, What should I set this before 100 men? He said again, Give the people, that they may eat. Thus saith the Lord, They shall eat, and shall leave thereof. So he set it before them, and they did eat, and left thereof according to the word of the Lord. Wow. Jesus did the same thing. Same spiritual energy. He fed the people with the loaves of bread. Foreshadowing of events, anyone? Now Naaman, captain of the host of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance. I know I talked about Zedekiah, but you have to, what happened to Zedekiah happens. What Elijah said was going to happen to him for Micaiah said, it's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? It's just not covered in this part. But you have to read throughout. You understand? That's why I said you can't just read one part of the Bible, but I've read it, and it does happen just as he said. It just dropped into my mind to tell you that, because I know some of y'all are like, what happened to him? Well, it's in here. Now, and the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive of the land Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. And she said unto her mistress, would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of his leprosy. So Naaman was a king, a man of the king of Syria. You know, there was war in Syria. You understand? But they knew what God was. And they sought the Lord to heal this man, this mighty man of valor that had leprosy. And the king of Syria said, go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 chains of raiment. And he brought the letter to this king of Israel, saying, now, when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of his leprosy. So this is all written in the letter. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, am I God, to kill and to make alive? That this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Oh, these kings. Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. He's getting boasted up for nothing. And it was so, when Elijah, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So this happened for a reason. So Naaman came with his horses, with his chariot, and stood at the door of the house of Elijah. And Elijah sent a messenger unto him, saying, go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naaman was wroth, and went away and said, behold, I thought he would surely come out to me, and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, and strike his hand over the place, and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? May I not wash in them, and be clean? So he turned and went away in rage. And his servant came near and spake unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou not have done it? How much rather then, when he saith to thee, wash and be clean? Then went he down. So he was mad, but he did it. Sometimes we like that too. We get like that. Why I got to do this? Because he said so. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again, like unto the flesh of a little child. And he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, behold now, I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. He said, I know that therefore there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. That helped him. But he said, as the Lord liveth before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. He tried to pay Elijah. But Elijah was like, I didn't do this for money. God always provides. I didn't do this for money. I didn't heal you for money. I heal you for the glory of God. You understand? And Naaman said, shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules, burden of earth, for thy servant, which will henceforth offer neither burnt offerings nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord? He's like, no, I don't want none of that. Not to do what you want me to do. Not to know other gods. And this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaned on my hand, and I bow myself in that house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said unto him, go in peace. So he departed from him in a little way. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, behold, my master have spared Naaman this Syrian, and not receiving at his hand that which he brought. But if the Lord live, I will run after him, and take somewhat of him. If Elijah refused it, you might want to take heed. So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he alighted down from the chariot to meet him, and said, is all well? And he said, all is well, my master have sent me, saying, behold, even now there be come to me from a Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 change of garments. And Naaman said, be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, and 2 chains of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants. And they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand, and bestowed them in the house, and he let them go, and departed. But he went in and stood before his master, and Elijah said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. Elijah was a real prophet of the Lord. He know things that people don't normally know. Watch what he said. And he said to him, Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and the olive yards, and vineyards, and sheep, and the oxen, and men servants, and maidservants? He called them out. Sometimes you're going to call some people out. Then leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever. And he went out from his presence, a leper as white as snow. Doing that, he cursed himself and cursed his family. For what? 2 pieces of silver and some garments. God's been providing for Elijah and Gehazi for a long time. You know, you got to be careful about this stuff, man. It's not always about getting something. It's not always about material things. Sometimes material things will lead you straight on the wrong path or curse you. You know, I know you're like, Houston, why are you reading all this? Because all this makes sense. It's a great story. I got to tell it all, and I ain't finished yet. I ain't tell you what's going to happen to Jezebel. Do you understand? Don't you want to know what's going to happen to Jezebel? Don't you want to know? This next chapter is going to be pretty long. Bear with me, people. Chapter 6, it's like, whoo. What in the world? Not too long, but it's long. And the sons of the prophet said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go, and we pray thee, even unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam. And let us make us a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with them, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water. And he cried and said, Alas, master, for it was borrowed. And the man, because, you know, back in the day, if you borrow something from somebody, you know, it was stimulations and stuff in regards to this. So he just went hysterical, if you would say, because he borrowed it. And my God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place, and he cut down a stick and cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. Whoa, it came back. Look at that miracle. Therefore said he, Take it up to thee. And he put on his hand and took it. God said he'll replace that which is lost. It just popped into my head. He'll replace that which is lost miraculously. The king of Syria warred against Israel and took counsel with his servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, Beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there not once or twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for his thing. And he called his servant and said unto him, Will you not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of the servants said, None, my lord, O king, but Elisha, the prophet that is in Israel, telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. You see, God said that he'll reveal things to you. He'll let you know something about what's going on. He'll let you know the plans of the wicked. You understand? In this case, everything he was trying to conspire, he's trying to figure out how does this keep getting back out. And he said, Go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, Behold, he is in Dothan. Therefore send here horses and chariots and a great host. And they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and gone forth, behold, and hosts camped the city, both with horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, Alas, my master, how shall we do? Let me stop right there for a second, because I got a lot to read right here. I will return.